All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City of Newcastle regular council meeting for Tuesday, April 18. It is 7 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And will you please rise and join me for the flag salute?
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, City Clerk White, will you please call the roll?
Deputy Mayor Sherlock,
Here.
Councilmember Griffin,
Here.
Councilmember Villasenor,
Here.
Councilmember Lacotia, Councilmember Charbonneau, Councilmember Clark, Mayor Newing.
Here.
6 members present and accounted for.
Thank you. May I have a motion to excuse Councilmember Lacotia, who contacted me last week and notified me she would be unable to attend tonight?
I move to excuse Councilmember Lacotia.
All right, it's been moved by Deputy Mayor Sherlock and seconded by Councilmember Griffin. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. All right. Are there any objections to approval of the final agenda as presented? Hearing none, please show the agenda as approved. Public comment. Those wishing to speak will be given 3 minutes. Please state your name and the area in which you reside. There is a timer at the podium. And do we have any signed up, City Clerk White?
None present in the room.
Thank you.
Director Bronze, do you have anyone on Zoom? No one
Okay,
on Zoom?
are there any members in the audience who would like to speak? Okay, we'll close the public comment. There'll be another opportunity at the end of the meeting. We have no ceremonial presentations, council comment. Councilmember Charbonneau, you want to start us off?
Sure, thank you. Want to mention there's a very good meeting we had, City Manager Pingle and I with Dr. Padnod, the Superintendent of Renton Schools. Really great, productive conversation, and we're looking to meeting with some of the local principals and engaging with those folks. I'll just remind folks that there is a week left to vote. I personally always use the Newcastle City Hall drop box to vote on a levy that is up. There's only one item to vote on, so it's very quick. Please go ahead and vote, and I will leave it there. Thank you.
Councilmember Clark, what do you have for us?
Thank you, Mayor Newing. In our last meeting, we talked, and I'm going to beat a dead horse, we talked about the slurry seal, and the city manager was kind of surprised we didn't have any follow-up discussion. I just want to add one thing to the discussion here, is that we are going to wait, like you mentioned, for the warranty period to expire, right, and then see what punch list items will or will not be completed by the contractor. But the next step, in my opinion, is for this council as a group to direct further action, because then I personally believe that after 1 year we won't see much change. So we're going to have a plan B, and that will have to come from this council as a group. So I just want to plant that seed, because when that year expires, the residents are still going to be here saying, what are you going to do? And there's a lot of votes on those streets for you four, right? So I would encourage all of us to consider as a group to encourage further action, such as how would we rectify it, perhaps one street at a time or something like that. I'm just planting that bug. So please consider that, because you're going to get asked if you are indeed campaigning, as I assume most of you are. Thank you.
Councilmember Villasenor, what do you have?
Thank you. Somebody, before the meeting started, wished somebody a happy tax day, and today is happy tax day. And I thought, well, that's kind of a funny thought, because it's likely that no one has wished you happy tax day today at all. But it just occurs to me that the act of paying our taxes and just reminds us that as citizens we have not only rights and privileges, but we also have duties and obligations. And so I hope you can see Happy Tax Day as just part of our societal obligations and an essential part of our American experience. So happy tax day.
All right, Councilmember Griffin, what do you have?
Well, I'll tag on to what Bill Senior had to say. Today was a happy day for me because everything came out right and got everybody taken care of. And I'm even going to get mine filed today, which is the first in a long time.
We promised not to keep you here until 12:01 tomorrow, so we want you to file on time. Deputy Mayor Sherlock, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor Newing. Well, happy tax day. I didn't really have much to say today, except I'll just wanted to share one of the many reasons I love living in our community. My husband is out of town this week, and we have 2 children that have extracurricular activities, and I've been running around only for 2 days, I guess, but it feels like a lot longer. And I got myself stuck in 405 traffic today when I was supposed to pick up my son from his D&D after school club, and I was able to reach out to my fellow Hazelwood parents on a group chat we had, and one of them immediately said, no problem, I got him, and got him home safely, and I was able to get him to everything else. And so I just thought that was just really awesome, and I hope you all have opportunities like that in this community, because I know we're not, unique necessarily in that. It's just being a good neighbor and human, but I've just always enjoyed having those interactions with my fellow Newcastleites. I hope that's the right term.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item 7.1, that is my report. So, for what it's worth, I used to be part of a dinner group years ago that actually got together for dinner on tax day. So there was a little celebrating here and there. Just a reminder of actually just to point out here what our team is working on here at the City of Newcastle. You saw some boxes lining the hallway and in the chambers, and they are hard at work going through old records, so thank you for that. I know that is a challenge, and it's a very time-consuming job. In addition, I'm looking forward to going to the Diamond Awards on Thursday. Should be a great event, held at Aegis this year at 6 p.m. And that's where we recognize some of our community members who don't even hesitate to give back to this community and our businesses as well. So looking forward to that. And that's about all I have. So any council committee reports? Councilmember Villasenor or Charbonneau?
Economic and Community Development is meeting next Wednesday.
Okay,
And I'll give an update on the 2nd.
okay. Councilmember Villasenor? Okay, Norman. And Salary and Benefits Committee has not met. Regional committees? Councilmember Clark?
Thank you, Mayor Newing. The Metropolitan Solid Waste Advisory Committee met on Friday after our agenda comes out, so I sent to the council member via the city clerk some 3 presentations. So the main focus is they have a legislative update. There's a number of bills were introduced and only a few are still surviving. You can read that PowerPoint to take a look at that. The Washington State Building Code Council, which I didn't even know about before, but they've created a set of codes for potential use by cities for old buildings, and that's really involving construction and demolition as a term of recycling, right? So they want to recycle and resave potentially old materials so they don't just get demoed and thrown in the landfill. The big push now is, of course, to prolong the life of Cedar Hills landfill as long as possible by not putting stuff in it. The third thing we talked about was the rate restructure. And I have asked Director Bronze to chime in for just a second to give you some bullet points because he's been more in touch with this than me. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Councilmember Clark. Actually, I don't think that we've discussed this specifically, but one of the things that King County wants to do is to separate out their charges into 2 components. they have basically their disposal of debris that comes to them in their tipping stations and to the landfill, and they have another component of their program, capital and outreach and things like that. So whereas right now all the revenue comes from a tipping fee, which is based on trucks coming and dumping, they want to break that up into a tipping fee component and a fixed annual charge component. And the fixed annual charge is going to basically be the funding source for that transfer station activity. And so they went through this whole process a couple years ago, and they come up with this method. And there's been some consternation among the cities because it's not clear how that's going to be enacted. So the cities, most cities, with the exception of Kirkland and a couple others, it's the collection hauler that has to do this. They have the agreement with King County. They're the billing entity. And so there was a bunch of discussion amongst the cities how this is going to actually happen on the customer's bill. So I think it's finally coming closer to fruition to work it out. And the waste management cities, Redmond is the pilot. There's 3 cities that are working with a consultant to come up with a pilot contract template. And Redmond is the lead for waste management. And it's looking like what they're going to do is just blend, even though waste management is going to get billed 2 components from solid waste, they're going to blend those back together into a combined composite rate so the bill won't change. There was one option about the bill to be more transparent from waste management would include that fixed annual charge and then the tipping fee charge. But due to a variety of factors, one of just being their inability of the billing system to do that, it's just going to go back to a single entity. And so the bill won't look any different. We're still not clear. The expectation is that the tipping fee now will be reduced in 2024 when this starts, and then the fixed annual charge those 2 combined will be essentially the same. So a lot of detail thrown at you there, but just what I thought was going to be a lot of the cities thought was going to be a big hassle. We're looking now, Redmond doesn't even know if they have to do an amendment to the contract with Waste Management. They're still figuring that out, and it's kind of not really beneficial to us to really take much action until they figure it out, let them figure it out, and then we'll follow their steps. So we may or may not be coming back to you with a change to our contract with Waste Management. So sorry, that was a little more than a minute or 2, but a lot of nuts and bolts. Thank you.
All right, any other regional committees? Councilmember Charbonneau?
I hate to follow up with another rate discussion, but the Public Issues Committee met in person again for the first time, and the big topic was wastewater rates. So nothing is definite yet. They're looking at there were some concerns about the 10-year forecast, so the county as a whole is looking at that, and then just a general look at the legislative recap, but that is ever changing as the session is still going on. So.
Okay, anything else? All right. City Manager Pingle.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Not a ton for me. Just wanted to point out, Mayor Newing pointed out Diamond Awards coming up on Thursday. I also wanted to just call attention to the City Manager's report about the Earth Month activities going on this month. And then, so you'll notice as you walk down the hall towards council chambers that we have new signs up on the bathrooms reminding officers to turn their cameras off. I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that we don't have officers with cameras yet. That's just in preparation. So the King County Sheriff's Office is going through a process of training officers, and then they'll deploy body cams in whatever way they determine. But before Newcastle officers get body cams, we'll get notice. We should have the opportunity, if we want it, to have them come and maybe do a demo for council as far as how the body cams work before then they get deployed to our officers. So Chief Kajihiro is very prompt in making sure those get on. Now there is the possibility that somebody is filling in or somebody that has been deployed a camera comes to work for us that doesn't work for us now. And so those are reminders. So you have to physically deactivate it and so that you don't have your camera rolling while you go to the bathroom or anything like that. So that's what that's about. And so I just wanted to clarify, there's been a little bit of misunderstanding throughout the county as far as who's getting cameras and what the order is and when we're gonna get billed for them. So I figured I'd just bring it to the council's attention that we'll have notice and we won't pay anything as far as body cams and our share of that until our officers get deployed.
Alrighty, and thanks for the information on the recycling event a couple weeks ago. Consent agenda. Is there any objection to approval of tonight's unanimous consent agenda as presented? Councilmember Clark? I'm sorry. We will-
Question for the city manager. Just a quick, if you could give us a quick update. It's been a month since the closing of the business grant program. Is any progress on deciding who, what, and where, and how?
Yeah, there was a bit of effort that went into just determining that applications were complete and that there wasn't follow-up necessary. The stage that we're in now is that Director Hoffman and his staff are going through and meeting with each applicant just to ensure that we have information that we want and have an opportunity to make sure that it's not that it's an actual business, that it's not, it's not spam, but it's an actual business in person. They have a business license, and so being deliberate about that process before then we move towards making grant recommendations.
Okay, now moving on. Is there any objection to approval of tonight's unanimous consent agenda as presented? If not, please show the consent agenda approved as presented. We have no public hearings, no unfinished business. Under general business, we have one item. 11.1 Lake Washington Park Improvements Phase 1 Crosstown Trail. I believe this belongs to you, Director Bronze.
Yes, Madam Mayor, excuse me while I hit the right function button here. Okay, just a couple slides, just basically reiterating the information that's in the packet, and then I'll be available for questions afterwards. So we're here, this was originally on the consent agenda, but due to the amount of the bids, we decided to put it on the regular agenda for discussion and give an opportunity for questions. Just to summarize where the project is, this is closing the loop at the south end of Lake Boren. It'll complete a gap in the Crosstown Trail, making use of the properties on the southeast corner of the lake that we acquired several years ago through grant funding. And we'll reactivate, or not reactivate, but activate that component of the park that is currently unused. This circle shows that was the concept from the master plan. The original idea was to have it kind of like a floating or a boardwalk out in the water, kind of something similar to what they have down at Coulon. And after coordinating with the regulatory agencies, they said that would be difficult to get permitted. So the boardwalk was essentially moved onto solid land and crossing Boren Creek. So it's a little bit further south from what's indicated on that picture. And then here are the bid results. One of the questions that was asked to me is, do we know where the increases in our estimate were? Because the estimate from the consultant was 1 million, and the high bid was 1.8 million. And these type of projects, park projects, school projects, building projects, they are consistently bid on a lump sum basis. So we don't have the unit prices where we would on a transportation type of project. So we can't really analyze where we were low or where they were high, for instance. But one good thing is to show that the number 2 and the number 3 are essentially the same price. So that to me says that this is the accurate price in the market right now. It's hard to know why this is high. There's it's kind of a specialized work. There's a long boardwalk with some metal structures. So maybe just there wasn't that amount of skill interested in doing this type of project. I don't know that it's a material cost thing because there's not really any material spiking right now. That in the past it was either asphalt or sheetrock or concrete or what have you. I don't think that's a component here. It's just a reflection of where the current cost is. Sometimes you're more accurate, sometimes you're not. On the project that just got awarded on the consent agenda, that was 7% under the estimate. So those type of projects are a little bit more bread and butter. It's asphalt, it's concrete, a little bit more easy to estimate than something like this. So that's all I have for you. I do have a couple, these are the tables from the agenda bill showing the construction bid, the construction services, and the estimated project cost compared to what's in the adopted budget. City Manager, do we have any update on, so one thing that's in the agenda bill, we have a $500,000 grant from King County as part of their first cycle of their Parks Levy grant. And then this legislative session, we requested $800,000, and it's currently in the Senate capital budget, and then it's not in the House budget, but they are going back and forth. Any information on that?
Not necessarily. I will just say, with where the capital budget is at, so House and Senate have to reconcile their proposals. But as far as I understand, the Senate's version is what they'll use to reconcile projects.
Okay.
That bodes well for us simply because they'll have to deliberately pull our project out for us to not be included in the final budget. And so
Good.
we can't say today that we're going to get that money. We will be able to say by Sunday whether we're going to get that money or not, but not today.
All right, great, thank you. And so that $800,000 would more than cover this shortage. In terms of the funding for the Parks Capital Fund in general, even with this unanticipated bid increase, we still have sufficient funds in the Parks Capital and would then just defer future work should we not get that legislative appropriation. And that is it. Happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Director Bronze. Any questions? Councilmember Villasenor.
Thank you. When we do projects like this, what do we sketch out as the lifespan of a structure like this? Do we have a feel for that?
In general sense, there's not something specific like a bridge is designed for 75 or 100 years for like a highway bridge or a roadway bridge. Something like this, there's not, now I'm not aware of a definitive lifespan. Something similar to this building does not have a definitive lifespan, but it would be expected to last, well beyond 50 years because the materials are, it's actually composite deck on the boardwalk. It's not wood. So that was a change that occurred during the design phase to make the materials more robust because wood is something that is natural and will degrade more quickly than a composite material.
Right, because I think about the other boardwalks in town, near Hazelwood, there's that
Right,
boardwalk
right.
that's in need of repair.
Right.
I just was
And that's a
curious.
and this is a much more robust structure. This will be something along the lines of the short little boardwalk connection behind Aegis. That's wood, but it also has a similar pin structure for the foundation. You're welcome.
Any other questions? Councilmember Clark?
Thank you, Mayor Newing. So for full disclosure, I did call Director Bronze prior to this meeting and asked him several questions about this job. But, and I'm anticipating and hopeful we get this other portion of the grant. So I will vote for this, but I am concerned. And if for future, I understand what the director is saying about a lump sum payment, but that doesn't sit very well with me as an engineer and I did tell him this today, but, we have an estimate from an engineering firm that supposedly knows how this stuff is done, and the actual job is so far off. And we heard the director say that we really can't pin on what construction materials might be higher. So I would encourage our city manager, directors, to do a better, not better, okay, you guys do a good job, but to do a more thorough understanding for this council of why the costs are the way they are. It doesn't sit well with me that we would say, well, it's just $600,000, $800,000 more, and that's the way it is. It doesn't, that's our people's money that we're spending. So we need to have a better understanding of why and how that money's being spent. So, the bid process may be that way historically. We don't have to say, well, that's always the way it is. We should dig deeper. That's just my 2 cents on it. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Sherlock.
Thank you, Mayor Newing. Just kind of curious when this would start, and I asked you before, is there going to be any impact to like the parking lot when like construction's happening? You said no. I'm just just so that people can know, this is really exciting. We've been
Yes.
waiting for this for a long time.
Right,
So.
for coming on 5 years, correct.
Yeah.
It's nice to get the momentum continue to roll. So yes, there's no anticipated impacts on the general park because this is off to the currently unactive space. The construction schedule is not, wouldn't know until if it were awarded, then we would meet with the contractor, get the paperwork, and so I would expect that they would probably begin staging and mobilizing mid-May, in about a month. And then depending on their suppliers but I think there's about 6 months of allowable time, but I think they would be motivated to try and get it done for the wet season. I think it's not realistic that it could be finished by Newcastle days, but there would definitely be noticeable, obvious improvements.
That was actually my question. Would there be an impact to Newcastle days?
No, I don't think so, because this
Okay.
area is unused now.
Yeah,
So, right.
okay.
I mean, there may be some, closer to the fishing dock, there might be some area, because there's some work as it ties in close to that, so there might be some areas there that aren't available, but the fishing dock wouldn't be impacted. If
And-
anything, it would be the loop that goes from the fishing dock, the easterly loop, so that might be closed or a temporary reroute.
And no problem with July 4th?
No,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Councilmember Griffin?
Thank you, Mayor Dewey. My question is this really the right time to spend a lot of money on the parks? We're going to talk about the sustainability in the town hall meeting 1st of June, or 6th of June, really, that's the first meeting in June. And we're probably going to be looking at, we need some money from taxes from the citizens. And it seems to me like it would be a strange thing to spend a lot of money right now and then come to the people and say, by golly, we need some more money because we got a budget that we got a problem with. And I understand that this money comes from a different place than the budget, but it's the impression that the people are going to get from seeing what we're doing. Thank you.
Okay, any motions out there? Councilmember Villasenor.
I've got it. I move to adopt Resolution 2023-944, awarding the construction lump sum bid for the Lake Bourne Park Improvements Phase 1, Crosstown Trail, P-022, to Accord Contractors LLC as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been, do we need to do 3 motions, City Clerk White? That's what I thought, okay. Just wanted to double check before we rambled on. It's been moved by Councilmember Villasenor, seconded by Deputy Mayor Sherlock, to adopt Resolution 2023-944, awarding the construction lump sum bid for the Lake Bourne Park Improvements Phase 1 Crosstown Trail P-022 to Accord Contractors LLC as presented. Councilmember Villasenor, would you like to speak to your motion?
No comments.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Sherlock, anything to add?
Well, I'll just address what Councilmember Griffin was saying, that, you know, I do think this is the right time for this because it is not connected. It's completely separate funds from our general fund, which is where we have our issues. And our community has invested a lot of time and energy into this project, and if we're not moving forward, we're not doing our job as council. So that's why I'm supporting this.
Okay. Motion on the floor is to adopt Resolution 2023-944, awarding the construction lump sum bid for the Lake Bourne Park Improvements Phase 1 Crosstown Trail to Accord Contractors LLC as presented. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion carries 5-1. Councilmember Griffin dissenting. Any additional motions? Councilmember Charbonneau.
I move to adopt Resolution 2023-945, approving a contract with Berger Partnership for construction support services as presented.
It's been moved by Councilmember Charbonneau, seconded by Deputy Mayor Sherlock to adopt Resolution 2023-945, approving a contract with Berger Partnership for construction support services as presented. Councilmember Charbonneau, would you like to speak to your motion?
I'm excited to see this move forward. My father and I are both avid walkers. It's probably genetic and have frequent Lakeborn. I think our staff made a great point about the public health and connectability improvements that this could bring to our community. And I think it's really thorough, being grant funded, being part of our Parks Capital Investment Fund, and being ready to delay it if we're not receiving that sort of legislative funding. So I think it's a thorough process.
Deputy Mayor Sherlock, anything to add?
No, well said.
Okay, motion on the floor. Adopt Resolution 2023-945, approving a contract with Berger Partnership for construction support services as presented. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-1. Councilmember Griffin dissenting. Any additional motions? Councilmember Villasenor.
I move to direct staff to bring back a budget amendment for project P-022.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Villasenor, seconded by Deputy Mayor Sherlock to direct staff to bring back a budget amendment for project P-022. Councilmember Villasenor, anything? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sherlock. Thank you. All right, motion on the floor to direct staff to bring back a budget amendment for project P-022. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. All right, moving on. No additional public comment. Any members of our audience wishing to speak? Seeing none, virtual land? Okay, I'll close the public comment.
Sorry, Mayor, let me check. I answered too quickly. No.
Okay. Planning calendar, City Manager Pingle.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of things. So the planning calendar you should have in front of you may have some adjustments coming to it. So when we were looking at the May 2nd study session to do fiscal sustainability, it was because May 2nd was really light. And so we thought we'd have time before and then possibly during that light meeting if we needed it to discuss fiscal sustainability. With just availability of people that are coming to present and whatnot, May 2nd is pretty full. And so certainly not overstepping with Mayor Newing and Deputy Mayor Sherlock, but potentially we push that to the 16th as far as the fiscal sustainability study session. Just because May 2nd is a much fuller meeting than we are anticipating. Beyond that, mostly normal stuff on May 2nd. A couple of things on consent as far as additional projects coming. Lakeborn fishing dock repairs, along with purchasing the electric UTV that was in the budget. And then on for general business, what we had anticipated having for tonight's meeting was the K4C presentation. So we'll have that on May 2nd. The budget amendment on May 2nd, and then we'll bring the Arts Trust Fund item back on May 2nd as well. And the only other thing on that you probably haven't seen before is the suspending our comp plan docketing. We don't have anything currently in process, and as we get into comp plan, anybody that would make such a request, it'll behoove them to just work through the comp plan process so they don't have to pay to go through that request process. And so that would be the main reason for suspending docketing, so that we can, any requests we would get, we would include as we consider comp plan updates.
Thank you.
Questions?
Any questions? Councilmember Clark.
Thank you. So let's assume that we move the fiscal sustainability back to the 16th. Does that push the pavement management study session back as well?
It would. And
Okay.
so we had anticipated June, potentially July for that discussion as it was. It wasn't until recently that we found that we could move it up to May if it was going to be available. And so we'll plan on June 20th for that discussion.
My next question is, I still don't see on here anywhere a discussion of how we're going to conduct the town hall and even where it is. So we haven't decided a location yet, have we? We talked about 2 locations, but I never heard a final, and we all wanted to be involved this year and just at least discussing how we're gonna conduct the town hall. When is that gonna happen?
I guess we could do that at any time. I will get with the mayor and deputy mayor and we'll get something out to the council. I think, I guess where my thinking has been is if we get somewhere specific when we talk about fiscal sustainability, or if we plan on doing something this year as far as revenue sources, then we need to take the opportunity to talk to the community about that. If we don't, we should have that discussion when we get closer to that time. And so I guess that would, I guess that's, if we're not, if we don't need to take action in July to put something on a November ballot, we should wait to have that discussion with the community until we get closer to when we're gonna do that. And so then the original plan when we were talking about doing the town hall was we were gonna work through the city manager work plan and pull the big things out of that to put in front of the community. I would, so again, we haven't decided that, but I would recommend that we revert back to that if we're, either if we don't get somewhere specific or to some kind of agreement on fiscal sustainability, or if we're not trying to get information in front of the community because we're on a timeline, I don't know. So that would depend on the outcome of the fiscal sustainability discussion.
So what you're saying, so to paraphrase, after the 2nd or the 16th, whatever the meeting it is, then we'll have a discussion of how we want the town hall to be conducted and where it's going to be. It seems to me we should already probably know where it's going to be because of reservations or whatever. Has that been decided?
We have, like I said, we continue to make sure both venues are available.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Councilmember Charbonneau.
Thank you. Yeah, going off Councilmember Clark, I just wanted to personally mention, I think that, to me, so we've had this model sort of for the town hall in the past where we've come forward to present a lot of information to folks. And I think sort of, at least when you're talking about the idea of town hall, it implies that it's a receptacle for folks to be able to give feedback, right? And I think our folks our residents are smart and are very well capable of understanding some of those items, but I don't know if if something's marketed as a town hall and a gathering of folks, and we're getting them together, I think folks might be coming more expecting to be able to give that feedback as opposed to getting a sort of, a lesson on local city government or something like that. And I feel like, we're always going to be very plugged into what it is because we know what's coming, we know it's there, and we've always had this of, I think you're sort of positing this idea just now of we need to have something to bring to the city, right? I would like to, I don't know, I've talked before, I would love to see more than one big annual town hall, but I would love to see them be modeled in a way where we do more listening than talking, quite frankly, because that's, I don't think our jobs are easy. I want to hear what people think. I want to hear people's ideas, and we didn't really have the receptacle for that at our last town hall. It doesn't sound like we're creating the receptacle and the space for that at the upcoming town hall, and I want to listen more. I want to give folks that opportunity to come talk. I think just because we don't have great attendance at a city council meeting doesn't mean folks won't come. We saw folks come last time, so I'd like to really, really push that and kind of challenge folks on the structure of that because I want to do more listening than talking, quite frankly.
Any other questions?
Can the city clerk say something?
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. Just for the good of the order, because we mentioned in passing potential for various revenue sources, and I know that you have discussed those things being placed on ballots in the fall. I just want council to be aware and remember that once we get through whatever discussion we're going to have in June with the community about anything like that, that doesn't mean that then the next step doesn't happen until September, October. The next step will be due very, very early in August.
Thank you. You're the gatekeeper for us, and I really appreciate that. No, thanks for the reminder, because you're right, it's very early in August. I want to say it's even the 1st or 4th, yeah. All right, any other questions? All right. Seeing none, we will adjourn. Thank you.